The Chessmen of Mars is the number 5 in the Barsoomian series by Edgar Rice Burroughs, where in the first novel, John Carter of Mars transmigrates, his spirit somehow travels to Mars, but this is not the scientific Mars of today. This is a fantasy Mars where there's many alien races all battling it out. John Carter himself has kind of superpowers, gets into lots of adventures, rescues the princess. Now, this is number 5 in the series, and we've already sort of left John Carter behind. He is no longer the central figure in the series. In the last book, we had Thuvia, Maid of Mars. That was about Thuvia, Maid of Mars, and John Carter's son, Catharsis. Catharsis from John Carter and Deja Thoris, because catharsis. You get your catharsis with your catharsis. Where yet another kind of a princess in peril adventure. Now, in this novel, which is the Chessmen of Mars, after having kind of a frame device where John Carter has somehow managed to actually transport his entire body from Mars to Earth, visiting him in he's got his harness, he's got his sword, he's got the gun that Tarkus, the 8-foot tall, multi-limbed green Barsoomian Martian gave to him. He sits down and he tells Edgar Rice Burroughs, who's just finished up a chess game with his assistant Shay. Turns out it's John Shay. No, I'm not that old. But yes, so he sits down and he tells him a tale, but this is a tale about Tara, his daughter by Deja Thoris, and her adventures. Now, in the opening of Tara's story, Tara's story, she is betrothed to someone already, but she gets greatly offended because a outsider, this guy who's all done up in very he's a bit of a popinjay, as I think the Wikipedia article says. He's got all these diamond encrusted harnesses. He's very kind of like done up. He expresses his admiration to her, and she's like, whoa, very, very offended. Like, how dare you? How dare you? And he's all kind of revved up, ends up taking her flyer out into a storm. Like, we're talking like hurricane, quadruple hurricane, and getting tossed to the winds and getting hurled far, far away from Helium, which is John Carter's kind of base of operation, the great city-state of Helium. This upstart, this Gahan of Gathal, sees that Tara has gotten swept away, and so what does he do? He gets his ship with his men, and they go after her. Except, of course, they get caught in the same storm, and they get swept away, and in the thing, and both end up crash landing. Tara first discovers what's kind of be the first part of this novel, which is the Kaldanes, which she comes upon this thing and she sees all these headless creatures, like headless bodies, like they're red Martian bodies. Everybody who's humanoid on Mars is red skinned. There's all these headless bodies, and at first she thinks they've just had their heads cut off, but then she sees that they're moving, that they actually can move, and they shove food into like what's basically kind of their neck stumps and stuff like that, and she finds this like horrific. And then these other creatures come out, and it's like, oh, red bodies, but the heads seem wrong, and indeed the heads are wrong. They're bluish gray heads with bulging eyes, and they chain up some of these bodies and lead them inside. Through a series of events, Tara gets captured by them, and she discovers the horrific secret, which is these are the Kaldanes, and the headless bodies are Rykors. They have been raised by the Kaldanes as vehicles for the Kaldanes, which are these, basically it's just a head, bluish gray head with bulging eyes, 6 spider-like legs, and two pincher claws, clia, which is a word I didn't know before, clia. The Kaldanes ride the Rykor around, and indeed sometimes they'll actually eat, quite horrifyingly, they'll eat the Kaldanes, and they're very emotionless, completely mind things. And indeed, throughout the story, Tara and Gahan find out that, oh, their greatest goal as a race is to become only pure mind, and indeed they hate coming outside. Their greatest goal is they want to just be in the earth as pure minds and nothing else. They do befriend one Galdane, Gek. So we have Gahan and Gek. So I guess that Gahan, at least it's got an A, and Gek, but it's two G's. I hate it when authors do that. There's adventures. They manage to escape, but they end up falling in on the Manitors, which is the second, probably the larger half of this book, which is where we get the Chessmen of Mars, because the Manitors, they are a very brutal race of red Martians, humanoid-shaped Martians, who believe that, like, they scorn all the other races because they prey on only the weak ones, and have never lost a fight, and thus are great. They view themselves as the superior ones, and they're very sneaky. They kidnap people from surrounding areas without ever letting them know. People just think that people have perished in this area. So they're very sneaky, but they also think that they are the best. Best of all, and there's maybe a slight kind of thing here of, you can think about, like, the Americans thinking that they've never ever lost a war and having that kind of that pride. And this is a novel written in 1922, so at this point, well, at least because if you ignore 1812, they've never lost a war. So they go on from there. This, and their form of justice is this game called this Martian chess called Jatan, where if you get condemned, you can fight for your freedom by being a living piece on this chessboard. Except what you find is when you've been condemned to this fate by their cowardly leader Otar, that no one ever survives, because you have to basically win 10 games, and you win 10 games of chess, but you also have to do every time you jump onto a piece on the thing, you have to battle with whoever's on the other side. So the odds are incredibly against you, especially if the people playing the chess moves are aware that you're a condemned prisoner. You're going to die. You're going to die. And indeed, so throughout this, of course, we have the usual kind of princess stuff happening, which is Tara is fabulously good looking, almost as good looking as Deja Thoris, and people automatically fall in love with her. So people want, the Otar, the cowardly leader, wants to take her as his his bride. Well, not at first, because she's very, very mouthy. She speaks against him, but in the end, yes, it becomes a princess. It's a princess in peril plot again, where Gahan has to save her. Gahan, whose name he changes his name to Turin Panthar, humble Panthar, because she doesn't because of course in that crossed wires, she doesn't recognize him from his initial Popinjay appearance at the beginning of the novel, where he had some diamonds across his chest. So suddenly he's it's the Clark Kent thing of you put on that, no one can actually pierce your disguise. So now he's a humble mercenary soldier, that she's like, oh, okay, you're loyal to me, you're saving me, but I don't recognize that you're this high prince. And she's like, oh, but she develops feelings for him, but I can't return the feelings because I'm already betrothed to somebody in this kind of political marriage back in Helium. So this, it goes on from there. All I'll say about that romantic impediment is that Tara's betrothed is de jure, which, if you're Josie and the Pussycats fan, you know that de jure means friendship. So that's you know how these things are going to work out. This has got a very familiar romance, fighting bad aliens, kind of interesting kind of stuff from the Edgar Rice Burroughs thing. So So, like, I really like this kind of split of the Rykor and the Kaldane at the beginning. That is a fun kind of little science fiction concept there of a race that is completely mind, who have bred these bodies for themselves to carry them around, and they can discard the bodies when they want. They can eat them when they want. They're devoid of all feelings, which makes them rather horrific to the two Red Martian heroes. But and indeed they get escape because there's one Kaldane who realizes, oh, you've convinced me that finer feelings, especially Tara singing, is like, oh, you've caught me, you've awakened this recognition in myself that there are finer things in life than just pure cold, harsh intellect. I like that we actually do get a good hunk of that novel there, especially at that beginning part where it's all Tara. A lot of these times in these things, it just becomes, it's all the dude saving the girl. She actually gets to do stuff at the beginning of the novel, trying to save herself. So it's like that. I like a lot of the horror elements that Edgar Rice Burroughs has. He's always touted as kind of the science fantasy writer, but he actually does have a lot of good kind of horror elements, slightly Lovecraftian kind of like, oh, the nameless horrors. There's a ghostly kind of presence in the second half of the book, where the Manitors are deathly afraid of what's in this ancient part of their own stronghold. But and Edgar Rice Burroughs is absolutely good at kind of evoking that kind of the chills sort of thing. Now, the second half of this book, though, with the Manitors, is kind of boring. We have a lot of just kind of build up and scenes of kind of like the inter-office politics of the thing. They don't actually have many living chess games in this novel. Indeed, we get one or two, and then Edgar Rice Burroughs is like, but you know how it goes. It's like, I guess I could see that they'd be repetitious, but I really wish that there'd been a little less inter-office politicking and more of kind of action, which is what you kind of come to Edgar Rice Burroughs for. It does become a princess plot. Tara, especially in the second half, is the princess in peril, with the Gahan having to do it. I mean, that's what you sign up for Edgar Rice Burroughs, so I kind of accept that, but, whatever. It's definitely, it's interesting in these books that it is very much slave societies, on the good guys and the bad guys side. There is these slaves, which, it started off with, John Carter of Virginia, an ex-Civil War soldier. And I mean, there a lot of times at the end of these books, there does seem to be there's oftentimes it's the freeing of the slaves that happens at the end, but it's that kind of that interesting sort of mix. So, yeah, so there was some parts of this one that were a little bit more of a slog to get through than the other ones I found. I just found that some of the stuff in the Manitor section, just like, okay, let's kind of move this along, get to the fight. I don't think I found the Manitors as actually interesting as the Kaldanes. The Kaldanes are just like this bizarre kind of alien race, whereas the Manitor, it's like they're kind of a corrupt, sneaky, craven kind of lot, which, I mean, I guess it throws the hero into greater relief. The hero gets to be even more heroic, but I wish there was a little bit more of an equal there, because in the end, especially Otar, the leader, who should be the main villain, is pretty much a damp squib. We get to know he's a coward pretty early on, and it's just a matter of how are they going to get him to fall, and so. So I will now continue on in my my Barsoomion, the Marsathon. I'm not going to completely divorce myself from the Marsathon, my very lonely Marsathon, and do the Mastermind of Mars next month, because I enjoy having a little bit of pulp, of old classic pulp in my life. So doing one of these a month is pretty easy to do. So that's what I'll be doing next month in Marsathon. More videos later.